Imagine your period is late. No pharmacy, no test strip, no doctor's office you can walk into this afternoon. Just your own body and a question that might completely change the next year of your life. Today, you'd know in about 2 minutes. A small stick, a line, an answer. But for most of human history, that answer didn't exist. And yet somehow people still found ways to know. Some of those ways were shockingly close to right. Others were bizarre enough to sound made up. All of them reveal how desperately people wanted a single, certain answer to an uncertain question. The oldest known pregnancy test in the world comes from ancient Egypt, written down more than 3,000 years ago. It appears in the Berlin Papyrus and the Carlsberg Papyrus, medical documents from the New Kingdom period, roughly 1550 to 1070 BCE. The instructions are almost absurdly simple. Fill 2 bags with soil, plant wheat in one, barley in the other. A woman who suspected she was pregnant would urinate on both bags every day and wait. If nothing sprouted, she wasn't pregnant. If the barley grew first, the papyrus predicted a boy. If the wheat grew first, a girl. For thousands of years, this looked like pure superstition. Then in 1963, a group of researchers actually tested it in a lab. They found that urine from pregnant women did cause the seeds to germinate more often than urine from non-pregnant women, accurate roughly 70% of the time. The likely reason is elevated estrogen levels in pregnant urine, which can genuinely encourage seed growth. Ancient Egyptians had no concept of hormones, but they'd stumbled onto something real. The gender predictions never held up to scrutiny, but the core test, wait and see if the body's fluid changes something outside itself, wasn't nonsense. It was observation dressed as ritual. This test didn't stay in Egypt either. Centuries later, it resurfaces almost unchanged in a German folklore text dated to 1699. And according to at least one historical account, a version of it was still being practiced in parts of Asia Minor as recently as the 1960s. An idea from the New Kingdom, still alive 3,500 years later, but Egypt wasn't the only ancient civilization trying to solve this. Around 400 BCE, Greek physicians associated with Hippocrates proposed something stranger. A woman would insert a peeled onion or another strong-smelling bulb into her body overnight. In the morning, if her breath smelled of onion, the Hippocratic reasoning claimed she wasn't pregnant. The theory was that an open, unobstructed womb let the scent travel upward. If a fetus was present, the Greeks believed, the womb was sealed, and the odor simply couldn't make the trip. By modern medical understanding, the reasoning is completely wrong. Smell doesn't travel through the reproductive tract to the lungs, but the underlying idea that the body reacts differently to an internal object, depending on its internal state, at least shows the Greeks were trying to reason their way to an answer, not just guessing at random. The Hippocratic writings describe a second method, too. A woman would drink a mixture of honey and water before sleeping. If she woke with bloating and cramping, it was taken as a sign of pregnancy, the theory being that a growing womb reacted differently to the sugars than an empty one would. Roughly 500 years later, a Greek physician named Soranus of Ephesus, working in Rome, took a more physical approach entirely. Soranus is considered one of the most important gynecological writers of the ancient world, and his surviving texts describe a checklist of bodily signs rather than a single ritual test. A missed monthly cycle, a new heaviness in the body, darkening around the nipples, a subtle rise in body temperature, shifts in appetite and taste. None of these were proof on their own, but taken together, an experienced midwife or physician could build real confidence, weeks before any fetal movement could ever be felt. And that's important because for most of history, one sign mattered more than any test, potion, or vegetable: quickening. Quickening is the moment a pregnant woman first feels the fetus move inside her, typically somewhere between 16 and 20 weeks. For most of human history and many legal and religious traditions, this wasn't just a milestone. It was the actual legally recognized moment pregnancy became certain. Before quickening, a missed cycle could mean illness, stress, or a dozen other things. After quickening, there was no more ambiguity. The woman herself felt undeniable proof, and no test, potion, or physician could argue with it. In other words, for thousands of years, the most trusted pregnancy test in the world wasn't invented by a physician at all. It belonged entirely to the woman experiencing it. All of these methods, the seeds, the onion, the honey water, Cyranus's checklist, the wait for quickening existed because people needed an answer badly enough to build a system out of whatever tools they had. And running underneath every single one of these methods was something rarely written down at all, the accumulated spoken knowledge of midwives. Long before any of these texts were carved or copied onto papyrus, midwives were already reading subtle changes in the body, changes in skin and breast tissue and posture and smell, and passing that knowledge on by word of mouth, mother to daughter, healer to apprentice. The papyri and the Hippocratic writings we still have today are really just the moments this oral knowledge happened to get written down. Most of it never was, so when we ask how ancient humans knew a woman was pregnant without a single modern test, the honest answer is that they built an entire layered system instead. Ritual, physical observation, careful reasoning, and the woman's own body all working together toward the same uncertain question. They didn't get it right nearly as often as we do today, but they refused to simply wait and wonder. They urinated on seeds and watched for a sprout. They inserted onions and checked their own breath by morning. They memorized 10 different signs on a body and cross-checked them like a puzzle. And in the absence of any real proof, they eventually just trusted the one signal that couldn't be faked or misread, a small, unmistakable movement, felt from the inside by the one person who could never be wrong about it.